Hello, welcome inside Fever Insider Live. Brian Haenchen, Chloe Peterson, Tony East here with you in the aftermath of an 84-72 Indiana Fever loss to the Las Vegas Aces in Game 3 of the WNBA semifinals. Turning point in the game tonight, 18-3 run for the Aces between the third and fourth quarter. Fever go from the 114 mark of the third to the 225 mark of the fourth without a field goal. Lexi Hall was great despite the back pain. We'll talk about her and what she said before the game. Kelsey Mitchell got her points, but it was very arduous, very difficult to get there. A little bit of her struggles, a little bit of the Aces struggling. Asia Wilson, if you just had her stat line where she went for just 13 points on 6 of 20 shooting, like she did in game one, but unlike game one, teammates really stepped up. Jackie Young, the Indiana native, was brilliant, 25 points for her. 16 for Nalissa Smith, who continues to kill the Fever. 15 for Chelsea Gray, 13 for Asia Wilson, as I said. Chloe, why don't you go first with your takeaways, and Tony will let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was just kind of something where the Fever ran out of steam at the end. And it's just one of those things that I thought was kind of going to happen eventually. Obviously, Lexi Hull is playing through this back injury for 3 games now, if you include Sunday when she got hurt in the first quarter. And then, obviously, Aaliyah Boss and Kelsey Mitchell have all been playing very heavy minutes. Michaela Timpson came in and, obviously Michaela Timpson has a lot of potential, but, kind of bringing her in place of Natasha Howard, who has, 11 years of playoff experience with kind of an adjustment they had to make. And then it was just one of those things where they ran out of steam and the Aces capitalized on that.
I agree with that, and I think part of why they're running out of steam is they have to work so hard to get shots they like, right? Like, to me, maybe it was just like a lull in general or something, but the Aces defense in game one was like really easy to poke holes in, and since then, they've walled off the paint and just been rock solid. And the Fever love to play fast and love to get their quick shots by driving and kicking and moving around. They can't do it, right? That's why they're getting a lot of open threes for their role players, because that's who the Aces are leaving open to wall this off. But Kelsey Mitchell can't wiggle into space. She's been not shut down, but made life harder. Aaliyah Boston cannot really get the ball in a post-up that's like advantageous for her, and the ball just kind of sticks. It's harder for them to get good looks, right? They shot 36% today. 14 assists. Care to guess their record when they had less than 17 assists this season?
No.
0-8. Not
Ooh.
Very good. Obviously, you have to make a shot to get an assist. So if you don't have a lot of assists, you didn't make many shots, you're going to lose. But the ball movement's not there. They can't get any grip on their identity with the way that the Aces are playing defense. And they've got to find a way to do what they did in game one, or else they just have no margin for defensive error when they can't score.
Fever tonight go 26 for 73. That's 35.6% to you and me, 30.4% for three. A lot of missed free throws, too, 13 for 21 there. Stephanie White, after the game, she was happy with the shots they were getting, just they weren't falling. And I think generally I agree with that. Kelsey Mitchell in particular got a lot of layup attempts. I think she missed 5 layup attempts. They had some good, clean looks around the basket. They just wouldn't fall. And again, going to Chloe's point, that feels a little bit like fatigue, where just, you don't get those shots to fall the way that they used to. Or usually do, not used to, usually do.
And I think, to Tony's point as well, the Aces have really stepped up defensively since game one. And I'm not sure if it's one of those things where the Aces kind of underestimated what the Fever were going to bring in game one, and that they kind of caught them flat-footed. But then they've really stepped it up since then, and that's made it a lot harder for the Fever to just find those shots in the first place.
Like half of the Fever's threes come from Hull, Petty, and Boston. Don't get me wrong, like Hull's a good shooter, but I think the Aces like, yeah, we're willing to live with those guys shooting. Yeah. Whatever. If they make them and we lose, we lose. But if that means that Boston and Mitchell can't get going despite taking 40-something shots, which like is fine, they're the best 2 players in the Fever, I think they're willing to live with that. And it's just they've done really well working out from there. And even when Asia has these poor games, she's had 2 rough offensive games this series. Her defense is so monstrous that it's just she's still such a force.
Let's talk a little bit about Kelsey Mitchell. There's a sequence there in the third quarter. Chloe and I picked up on it. Tony, I'm sure you saw it too, where she missed a 3-pointer. So first she comes off a screen from Aaliyah Boston. Looks like maybe she gets her hand caught in Jackie Young as she comes around it. Either way, it comes up, airballs the 3-pointer. You kind of see her shaking her hand out a little bit, looking down at it. She's holding her hand up as she comes down here and plays defense. Same thing a little later, and it felt like tonight that Kelsey Mitchell's misses when she was missing badly. Like
bad, man.
Airballed some threes, some layups that were really far off the mark. I think a couple of them, maybe they credit them with tips, but just she didn't look like herself shooting the ball, which is concerning to say the least.
And I mean, she still has that broken finger on her shooting hand, her left hand. And at this point, obviously it's healed in some way. It likely healed incorrectly, but that's still something she's been dealing with throughout the season. It hasn't felt like it because she's had such a good season. Obviously an MVP finalist worthy season, but it might be coming back now in some ways, especially after you mentioned, catching her hand with Jackie Young.
And it's hard when watch the way Jackie Young is guarding her really intently, and she'll turn her hips in a way that she's like, yeah, go ahead, drive right. I don't care. You're left-handed. Do it. They're really trying to shade her to specific spots. And I think that's also making life hard for Kelsey Mitchell to get the shots that she likes as well. So some of it's credit to the Aces defense. But yeah, there was 2 in a row threes in the fourth quarter. One was a left wing 3, air ball landed out of bounds, and then a right corner 3 that hit the top corner of the backboard. I was like, oh man, something's just not right with Kelsey Mitchell tonight. And don't get me wrong, off nights happen. Lester Smith said that post game, but for the Fever's offense to be anything, as we've seen in the playoffs in this series, Kelsey Mitchell's got to be something. So that was really tough for them.
On the other side of things, the silver lining, I suppose, is just, Lexi Hall, we've said it, we've written it just a dozen different times at this point. It feels like just how much of a badass she is, for lack of a better term. She talked before the game about how she's playing through pain. It's not comfortable. It's not fun. She just, I forget what the exact phrase was, but either way, she's playing through a lot. Tonight, she was great. 16 points on 6 attempts, shooting 3 of 6 from 3, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple blocks as well. The only thing that really hung her up, honestly, was the foul trouble. Picks up her 4th foul there. What was it, late in the third, forced to sit out there for a stretch. But otherwise, she had the hot hand tonight and looked really good, all things considered.
Yeah, she's been the same player that she has been even before she got this back injury. I thought maybe she would not be as aggressive getting those rebounds, but she's still flying under the basket. She's jumping for those rebounds, kind of fighting. And I'm sure it has to hurt for her, but she's been the same player, I would say, since that injury.
When she's making threes, she's just so important to both sides of the ball, right? She can guard the other team's best player and at least make it hard for them. If you stop Jackie Young, congrats to the first person to ever do it, but make it harder for her. And then on the other end, be an actual spacer and weapon that if the Aces are willing to live with it, you got to make them. These last 2 games, she has made them 3 for 6 from deep. Tonight, she's been awesome. And I think it says everything about her effectiveness. She plays 32 minutes. They lose those minutes by 2. She sits on the bench for 8 minutes. They lose those minutes by 10, right? They just get smacked when they don't have her shooting and defense on the floor. And no offense to the players behind her, but they're either not close to as good of a shooter as her or not close to as good of a defender. So not only is she playing well, but she's very important to their entire operation. So the foul trouble really hurt, and having to have her foul out was there were a lot of little tiny boneheaded Fever plays in this game, but what was that?
I'm really glad you brought that up.
Anyone else take that foul?
And it's weird though, because there was no sense of urgency. Think Eddie or somebody would be running over there or rushing to it, but nothing.
Yes.
There's no sense of urgency, which is just weird. And Tony just
she was mad about having to do it too when she left the game.
Yeah, she did. She emoted pretty loudly there. It just, and that too, it goes back to the fatigue thing. Not making an excuse, but you wonder how much that you're just not as sharp mentally, and so you start having little slip ups like that, and then they snowball, and suddenly you have situations like that. Something else that was interesting. It was kind of inconsequential to the game, but the challenge is remaining an issue. Stephanie White had a couple instances where she was running down trying to get the timeout, couldn't get it. It almost worked in the Fever's favor at one point because the Aces inbounded. It's picked off by Kelsey Mitchell, and Mitchell missed the layup that would have made it a 4-point game, I think. But then on the sequence right before that, an out of bounds play, I think she was trying to get the replay from her bench from the coaching staff, but couldn't actually get it based on her reaction where it was pointed more towards her people versus the referees. I think they were slow. But it was really bizarre. 3 instances there for the Fever where they wanted the review and couldn't get it.
And the first one, the Aces got a 3 and took the lead at 51 to 50. And then the third one that you mentioned, when she couldn't get the replay fast enough, I get that it's hard. You need to see another angle, but she was mad, right? She was really mad that she didn't get it fast enough, and she should be, right? That it was a close game at the time. You want to know all that stuff, but again, just it wasn't little things that made them lose this game like it kind of was in Game 1 of Atlanta, but there was a lot of little stuff that's just they just needed to be a little sharper in a lot of ways in this game.
Chloe, I'll let you take some takeaways before we go into the questions.
Yeah, it was interesting, I think, how different it was tonight compared to game one, because obviously Asia Wilson had a pretty big off night once again. I think she started 1 for 11 from the field. She made that 3-pointer to open the game, and then she didn't score again until I believe it was like 2-minute mark of the third quarter. So she was having a pretty bad like off night. But the difference between Sunday and today is that obviously everybody else, Jackie Young stepped up, and that was kind of where the Fever went wrong in a sense. Obviously, they limited Asia Wilson. Aaliyah Boston did a really great job on Asia Wilson tonight, but it was just they let everyone else kind of pick up that slack.
I totally agree. I have a couple other smaller things from this game.
Sure.
One, Michaela Timpson, clearly a big adjustment for the Fever to try her as their first sub and very often off the bench. And Natasha Howard just hasn't had a good series, right? They haven't been able to use her enough defensively, and she's been fine on offense. She made half her shots, but like you're not feeling her impact as much as you do when she's at her absolute best. And Stephanie White's like closing a close game with a rookie, right? Like that says a lot about what they're thinking rotationally. They went to Turner after Timpson. That was a big switch. They definitely need more from Odyssey Sims. Like that,
Yeah.
She's had great playoff games. Tonight was not one of them. Missed all her shots. They played Shea Petty more than her, right, in this game. So that's two starters that were like outplayed by the reserve at their position. I think even both of those players might admit that after the games that they had. I thought that was pretty significant in both ways. And like just kind of generically about this game, the final score will not reflect how it was. Like it was very close going into the fourth quarter, but Lexi Hall being that good and Asia being that bad for a lot of this game, and it's a home game, the Fever really needed to win it. Like that's a painful loss, I think.
That felt like the opportunity there in the third quarter. Like that felt like the window for them to win, not the game, but the series. Because you do that, you have all the momentum, all the confidence in the world, and instead it flips. And now suddenly you have this massive behemoth coming down, breathing down your neck, and you're down facing elimination at home. And Chloe brought this up the other day after the show, but this is just like, what was it, 22 against Seattle for Vegas, where they lost at home. I think Asia Wilson also won an award before that game.
She won MVP Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. They lost game one at home against Seattle, then won the next 3 games.
Yeah.
And another takeaway I forgot about until right now. It was something Becky Hammond mentioned after the game was that final layup right before halftime. Where Chelsea
that 6-0 run was brutal.
All the like full court pass, like they caught the Fever flat-footed, and Becky Hammond was like, Steph is going to hate those 3 seconds. I forgot her exact wording, but she was like, she's going to hate that because that took away the momentum from the Fever going into halftime. It was a 1-point game. The Fever had fought back from, I think it was a double-digit deficit or a more significant deficit, obviously, in the second quarter. And they were down by just 1 point until, they kind of just caught flat-footed with Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young. And that kind of brought the momentum back to Las Vegas going right into halftime. And I think on the vibes, if the people care about the vibes, the momentum went back to Las Vegas in that instance.
Somebody was eating good in the neighborhood. I couldn't remember. She had some really good quotes tonight. She did. Let's get some questions first before we just quickly spin it ahead to game 4. Any idea why Howard was benched? Is she hurt? I mean, to be blunt, she just wasn't very good.
Yeah, agreed.
Just really bad.
Well, I'll say 2 things, though. Sorry. Someone tweeted this at me, so I have the stat fresh in my mind. I don't think she played well, but also she sat the last 15 minutes of the game. Like, that's a long, long, long time, even for a player who's not playing particularly well. So that this question is totally fair to ask because that's a long time.
Absolutely. What was the vibe in Cambridge? It came off as dull on TV. That's weird because it was energetic. Like, it was more energetic, even as the Fever were struggling to get into it at the beginning. Like, it was loud. And then as soon as they made that run there, especially in the third quarter, I mean, this place was rocking. It was a much better crowd than it was for game 2 against Atlanta. The building was buzzing, and Becky Hammond talked about that. Just that was kind of the backbreaker there, that 3 seconds left. It sucked the crowd out of it immediately. And yeah, I mean, even when the Aces were matching punches, like I think it was the Fever hit 3 threes in a row, and the Aces answered the first 2 with 2s before calling a timeout. The building sustained that energy even through those defensive lapses, or not even defensive lapses, just circus shots on the other end. So I thought the vibes were good in the building tonight. What did you guys think?
I thought it was a pretty pretty good crowd, especially when the Fever were making that run and they took the lead whenever that was, I think, the third quarter. But I think obviously the fourth quarter was pretty rough for the Fever, and that reflected in the crowd too.
Yeah, understandably.
Much more voluminous and loud crowd than I thought of Game 2 of the Atlanta series, certainly. Yeah, they were into it until that 6-0 run that Chloe talked about to end the third quarter, and then the Fever didn't score for like probably 15 minutes of real life time, or made a shot, sorry, and then they were out of it, as they should be. The team they were rooting for stunk.
I'm really curious to see what it's like here on Sunday, because it kind of feels like the swan song. I'm curious how people show up. How much better would, I'm assuming he means, Timpson look if somebody would have played her all, where instead of letting her ride? So Michaela Timpson, I think, is what this person is trying to say.
Yeah, how much better would she have been if she had played in the regular season?
It's
Versus...
proofread before it gets sent. Go ahead.
But I'm not sure. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Natasha Howard is the veteran with 12 years of experience, 11 years in the WNBA playoffs, and on paper, you're always going to want to go with Natasha Howard over Michaela Timpson, who is a rookie, and that's just how it is. I think obviously Natasha Howard was struggling tonight, and that's why they made the change. But I think similar to when we talked about Chloe Bibby yesterday, you know, Michaela Timpson's minutes decreased throughout the second half of the season because they were trying to figure out a playoff rotation and trying to get that settled. But then obviously they had all those injuries. They never really could figure out a rotation. And I think, you know, Michaela Timpson is just kind of trying to get experience, trying to learn, you know, in practice too. And Steph talked about bringing Timpson in tonight for the physicality too. And I think that's what she was able to bring tonight instead of, or in place of Natasha Howard as well.
Yeah, I pretty much co-sign all that. I mean, they said during the season when she started to play less, like, yeah, she's fine, but not, you know, ready for major rotation minutes, right? And so I think a better question would be like, if they played her enough to the point that this person is asking, did they even make the playoffs, right? Like that was kind of the season they had to go through. So yeah, you can ask it, but I think that they made the right choices. What is going on in there?
The leaf blower came here, so I was going to throw to you quickly and hit mute, but he's on the other side of the floor, so it's okay. Game 4 discussion. Let's start with this. Do you anticipate any starting lineup changes? Do you think Natasha Howard gets pulled out for somebody? Do you think that they will make any changes? Do you think they should make any changes? Those are two separate questions to get the discussion started.
Good question.
I don't think they will, or, you know, should they in a sense? Because I think obviously Natasha Howard hasn't been great this series, but when you change the starting lineup, you also mess with the rotation.
Sure.
And you mess with kind of creating that punch in the first quarter if you kind of throw maybe like Michaela Timpson or Aerial Powers or something. Because those five, too, you know, they have all been starting together since mid-August when Odyssey Sims signed and then came to the starting lineup. So, or I guess when after Sophie Cunningham went down, too. But they have, obviously, they're used to starting with each other, and I don't think they'd want to mess that up, especially in an elimination game.
Tony?
I agree. Usually when there's like a starting lineup change in the playoffs, it's something that's been like bubbling for a little bit too, and not just like one game. And there's nothing that I've even thought has been like a credible thing that's been bubbling. And what would it even be, right? Hall's going to start, Mitchell's going to start, Boston's going to start. So Timpson or Turner for Howard? No. And then Sims for Petty? No, right? Sims had a terrible game today, but she has proven to be better than this. So no, I do not think so.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like finally more than ever that we've kind of hit the end of the line with Beaver almost. I don't know. Like this feels a lot different than it did in Atlanta. It felt like it did during the regular season, where it just kind of feels like the gas is run out. The legs have kind of given out on them a little bit by no fault of their own. Chloe, what do you make of it?
I kind of agree in that sense. I mean, obviously this has been exceeding expectations for the Fever, even making it to the semifinals in the first place. Like I know the three of us were talking about, you know, we didn't even expect them to beat Atlanta. You know, everyone from ESPN except for I think Alex Philippou thought they were going to beat the Dream, or the Dream were going to beat them in 2. So I think this is still exceeding expectations for the Fever, especially with, you know, the 5 season-ending injuries and Damiris Dantas, which, you know, may at this point even be a season-ending injury because she was here tonight, but she hasn't practiced
Mm-hmm.
since suffering that injury, and I feel like at this point, they're not going to throw her in on Sunday.
Yeah.
So with 6 players out and 10 available players, and then Lexi Hull too with the back injury, like they've gone through so much this season that at one point we were like maybe they won't make the playoffs at all, but now they're a semifinal team.
Somebody hooping in there?
They're cracking a towel right now.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
I've seen that crew
Times.
later.
Free throws. That's something else we should talk
Yeah.
about. I mean, 13 for 21.
Yuck.
I mean, and they were missing. I mean, everybody missed some tonight, I think, except for Odyssey Sims and Lexi Hall. They both went 2 for 2. But I mean, they left so many points on the board tonight, and there was at one point it wound up being closer than it was, 21-17. But I think at one point there was a pretty significant difference in free throws attempted between the two teams.
That's before. I mean, I don't know how many times Indiana
Fouled
at the end of the game, at least 3 or 4 times.
But it gets back to what you said, Tony. It's just the little things really damned them tonight because it may not look big in the moment, but when you get to the end of it, you have a bunch of those things stacked up and it screws you.
And it's like the 6-0 run at the end of the third quarter, and then the start of the second quarter, Aja's not in, and it's a 6-0 run. It's like that they lost by 12. There it is, right? Like you could do that with a million things in this game, including free throws and all this stuff we've said. Also, I agree on Dantas. I know they value her shooting for spacing a lot, but I think she's missed no playoffs. There's just no way, right?
At this point, obviously, if she wasn't practicing on Thursday, as we saw. They're not having practice tomorrow either. So I don't think at this point, if she hasn't practiced since September 11th, obviously she's not going to be too out of shape, but she would have needed some kind of ramp up to get back. And I don't think a walkthrough for the Fever tomorrow she would need more than that, basically.
Can I spin forward to game 4 another way?
Yes.
Yeah.
The last time the Fever lost the game by 12 and needed to win 2 in a row to move on to the next round was literally like 2 weeks ago, right? They literally lost 80-68 to Atlanta in game 1. We were all like, this is going to be tough. Like, it's great they made the playoffs. And then they're here, right? Yeah. So, don't get me wrong. Obviously, because they only need one more win, the Aces are like the heavy favorites to win the series and played very well in this game. Like, we've seen them do this already once. So, I don't expect it, but it is certainly possible for them.
The Aces feel a little different too. Like listening to them afterwards, somebody tried to tee up Jackie Young. Like, you're 1 win away from getting to the finals. Isn't this amazing? Isn't this great? And she just no.
Yeah, she was like, we're not there yet.
We want to win this next game. Becky Hammond is like, we played well, but we kind of played like shit for 40 minutes.
Honestly, I would say that the Aces' dream difference is that the Aces have won championships, and the dream, this was the first year they were really good, right? So, like, yes, I can easily do the thing I just didn't say, like, this is the same situation they were in last series, but it's not. Like, it's very different for lots of reasons.
It really is. Real quickly from the Minnesota-Chicago game, this is from Kendra Andrews with ESPN. Cheryl Reeve did not take any questions post-game. Instead, she spoke for 2 minutes on officiating and called for a change of leadership at the league level when it comes to officiating. She also said Collier has a possible fracture, but did not specify what body part. So things are going well in Minneapolis, I would say.
Yes, I mean, Minnesota's also now on the brink of elimination too, which is interesting. Obviously, Minnesota came in as the heavy favorites. They locked up the number 1 seed like 8 games before the season ended. And I think this game, I half watched some of it. Fourth quarter especially was very frustrating. Cheryl Reeve had to be held back by like 4 different people at one point. On the play that Nafisa Collier did get injured because she thought Nafisa Collier was fouled, obviously. I didn't look at the play too much to know for sure whether she was fouled or not, but it did obviously result in some kind of injury. I did see Nafisa Collier was able to walk off the floor, but
that doesn't really mean anything.
That doesn't really mean anything. Could be an upper body injury, could be something she could have walked off. But yeah.
I kind of have 2 thoughts on this, regardless of the fee part. The fee part sucks. They've been good without fee this season, but like it's the Phoenix Mercury. It's going to be tough. Oh, on one hand, in my brain, I'm like, if every team thinks the officiating sucks, does it actually suck? But on the other hand, it's like, it's been so blasted and I can see it with my own eyes. And I'm like, this has to be better. Like it just has to be, right? And there's a reason every team is complaining because it feels inconsistent to them all the time. And Cheryl Reeve going as far as to saying, how did this crew get a semifinal game is something else. Like that's something else.
Feels like that's
man. Best team all season, losing 2 close games. Crazy.
I guess something kind of related to the officiating is Becky Hammond, to relate back to Fever, Aces. Becky Hammond went off on the officials following Sunday's game because she thought they didn't put enough of an emphasis on both freedom of movement and defensive 3 seconds. Then we move to today. They call 3 defensive 3 seconds in the first half. 2 of them are on the Aces. Becky Hammond was not happy with that on the court, but then they also did not call any in the second half. So it was very interesting to see that kind of populate, like, just immediately with the defensive 3 seconds, because, you know, Becky Hammond was also talking about there were 61 of those called in the regular season, only 1 in the postseason so far, and then they have 3 today. So I guess I don't know how many are, if there were any in Minnesota, but I guess we'll see.
Here's those comments from Cheryl Reeve, just excerpts from ESPN. I want to call for a change of leadership at the league level when it comes to officiating. From awful announcing, they have the next clip. The officiating crew that we had tonight, for the leadership to deem those 3 people semifinals playoff worthy is fucking malpractice. Holy smokes. Did not hold back at all. And it is a problem.
Also said he has a fracture. That's like season ending, if that's accurate. That's
brutal, man. That's absolutely brutal. But I mean, the officiating is a problem at the college level too. Like, I remember Caitlin Clark's, I think it was her junior year, maybe they were playing like West Virginia, and there's like a phantom call as West Virginia's trying to spur the upset, and there's a phantom call as she was going in for a layup. That's always stuck with me because I covered the kid who was called for the phantom call. I covered her in high school. Kaya Watson called for a phantom call, and I remember at South Dakota covering their women's team, it was all the time just these weird bullshitty calls that go against them. And then at the WNBA, it seems like these playoffs have really brought to light the officiating problems, which is impressive because they're front of mind and a large talking point everywhere going into the playoffs, and now it's only gotten worse.
So you know what's funny? I have 2 quick thoughts on this. One is I have quotes and tweets from Becky Hammond talking about how she hates the change and how physicality is officiated into the playoffs from last year, 2024, before they even playing the Fever, right? This has been a thing that she's complained about for a while. And the second thing is officiating being a problem is like one thing when it's inconsistency. It's another thing when players literally get hurt, right? Yeah. So I totally understand why Reeve is so hot right now specifically. But look, there was a lot of injuries in the W this year. I mostly attributed that to 44 games. But like if officiating played any role in that, like they have to find a way to make it better because it's hurting the product at that point.
Did you see the play, Tony, by the way, that Fee got hurt on? Okay, we'll have to watch that before we come back tomorrow. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. It's a bang play as she comes around. So it was hard to get a read on in real time. But when you have the benefit of a replay, and Chloe and I were watching it separately in the press room. I mean, they spent some time with it to F it up still. I can understand why a coach would be infuriated with that.
Hey, we had our token missed out of bounds somehow this game. Every freaking playoff game, there's like a very obvious out of bounds. And I'm like, how did they even get to that conclusion?
Did we have 2 challenges total tonight, by the way? Impressively, we had the one official challenge to review if it was a flagrant landing zone foul, which kind of looked like it was, but they said it wasn't. And then we had
I thought it was landing space foul.
I did not, actually. That's funny you say that. I thought Joelle Lloyd just jumped sideways, like if Lexi Hull jumps forward. What she's supposed to do, not jump.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then there was an out of bounds call. I think that the Aces successfully challenged to get overturned, which is impressive. That wasn't for lack of effort, though, to be clear. They were jumping all the
she wanted to challenge, yeah.
What a time to be alive. But we will be back for at least one more of these on Sunday. Then it's season wrap time if things don't go the Fever's way. Otherwise,
we'll have more.
Otherwise, we'll have more post-game shows. We'll have lots of surprises once the season does end. So be sure to stay with us. Subscribe, like on YouTube. Ring the bell for notifications. Read Tony's stuff. Read Chloe's stuff. Don't read my stuff from tonight. It's not very good. But that's it. We thank Tony for hopping on with us. We thank Chloe for being herself, I guess. And, we will talk to you all again here in 48 hours.